Okum Charla. Great, great. Good evening. If you guys don't know me, my name is my name is what could you say? I am the president of the Christ Ambassadors. Um, actually, go back. So the topic for today, as part of our CA week, is financial happiness. Next slide, please. Um, I work as a tax as you can see here, I work as a tax accountant. I'm also a financial accountant. I help people basically either with their business resources or I help them set up whatever retirement plans that they have. That is what I do for a living. I also help people maximize their tax savings and actually properly plan for retirement as well. Give me a second. I'm going to share the live. You all should receive a ping. Please do well to share this with everybody as well. And if you're on Zoom, please, you can definitely send in your questions via Zoom. Great. Okay, so we are about to begin. What is what is financial literacy? So financial literacy is the ability to apply and understand different financial skills, right? So it's one, you have to understand, and two, you have to know how to use what you understand, right? To be better, to have a better, how do you call it, a better success, a better success rate. Also, you have to know what works for you as well, right? There is no one size fits all, right? There are different tools, different things that are done for different people that work for them. So what we do is that we we work with you, we talk with you, find out what you need, find out what your goals are, find out what you want to accomplish, and then we go from there. It's also to understand how to create an actual budget, right? So it's not just spending, but knowing how you spend it, knowing what your expenditure is going to as well. And the last bit is also to manage your credit as well. So I will begin with, does anybody have any questions? Yes, I'll go through everything on here. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. We will pass a microphone um, to you. So I'll start with the personal finances. So I'll start with retirement planning. Yeah. So again, it is never too early to start. If you are 15, like some of the youth, if you're 60, it's never too late to start, right? You have to start at some point, right? Also, yes, like I said, it's never too late to start. No matter how old you are, it doesn't matter. At some point, you intend to not work anymore, right? Gone are the days where we would rely on our kids to take care of us, right? Now our kids are stressed, even at their age, right? So you can't think of, oh, my child is 15. When I'm 50, 60, he got me. No. You know, the kids have loans, they're stressed, right? So we can't expect our kids to be the ones who take care of us. We have to plan for that. And even better so, plan for them. Leave something for them that they can also build off of, right? Also, there are multiple ways to reach this goal. Multiple ways. If you can go to the next slide, please. So if you can read here, it's a bit small, but these are some of the many ways to actually plan, right? There is, and again, these are the most popular ones, not the only ones, right? So there is a 401k. Does anybody know what a 401k is? Anybody? Yes, it is. So sounds good. So what she said was that it's a employer-based, how do you call it? An employer-based retirement plan. So basically, it's we'll get to that in a second. Also, there are both a traditional and a Roth. How do you call it? A Roth IRA. There's also a SEP IRA that is for self-employed people. Know a lot of people here have a business, run your own business. That is also designed specifically for you. There is also social security. As you can see, I put not recommended unless you plan on living back home because there's not much in there at all. Right now, per month, you might get about 1,600, right? And I'm pretty sure my rent alone can, So, yeah. Also, there are mutual funds. There are mutual funds and stocks as well as life insurance. And last but not least, savings as well. That is the simplest old school way of planning. But as you can see these days, that is simply not enough. So we'll start with the 401k. As, next slide. So as you can see, it's an employer matched plan, right? So basically, you will contribute, and then depending on the kind of job you have or the company's policy, they will match a certain. They will match a certain. They will match a certain percentage of what you put into it. Also, you can contribute up to about. You can contribute a maximum of 22,500. But if you're over 50, you can contribute about how do you call it? You can contribute about how do you call it? Thank you. Yes, it's on the projector as you can see. Great. That is basically called a catch-up a catch-up contribution, and also it's tax deferred, right? So let's say you make about 85, right? About 85,000 a year, right? That puts you right above the 24% tax bracket, right? So if you can put in some into your 401k, basically you are kind of saving up and also reducing your tax paid at the same time, right? And the tax is not paid until you pull them, until you pull the money out. It can only be accessed. It can only be accessed penalty free until you are 15. How do you call it? When you are 59 and a half years old. So before then, if you take it out, you have to pay a 10% penalty on top of the tax that you owe on that month as well, right? So always remember that. Now you can also borrow money from it, right? So a simpler way to avoid paying the 10% as well as the how do you call it? As well as the tax on it is basically to take a loan from it. Now it's designed in a way that you don't have to pay back right away for some time, but also remember that loan might also build some how do you call it? Can also build some interest. So So how do you call it? So also have it in mind. Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay, let's move on to the. Yes.
Thank you. So how long do you have to work in a place in order to get up to the 25? You said a year. Okay, I see
Yes.
that. And can contribute 3,000, 30,000 a
Yes.
year. If you're over 50,
Yes.
oh, so, but can you assess this before 50?
Yes, you can. So that's why I say that before 50, if you pull the money out, right, you run the risk of having to pay the 10% penalty and the tax, right? So I always recommend that you take it out as a loan instead of pulling the money out. Because if you pull the money out, let's say your tax rate is about 24%, right? One, you are paying 10% of the whole amount that you also took out, as well as the tax on it, right? So then it's much higher. But if you take out the if you take out the loan, even if it's a simple 6% rate, you are still not paying as much as if you pulled it out, right? So okay.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. So, and again, you can also roll it over. So, say I leave let's say I leave my work, right, and my 401k is still locked in my company's how do you call it? My company's fund, right? What you do is that you can opt for what we call a rollover, right? So basically, what will happen is that you can roll it from one tax deferred systems account to another tax deferred systems account, right? Now, tax deferred is basically a way of saying no tax has been paid on the income yet. So basically, tax will be paid on income when you pull it out because it's never been taxed before ever at all, right? If you put it into a non-tax deferred, then now you have to pay the tax on it. Does that make sense? So I always recommend that you consult an advisor first before it's rolled over. Never take it out as a check. If you have it as a check, do not deposit it into your bank account. Do not do that. Make sure that you find your advisor and hand it to them, and then make sure it's in. Make sure that the advisor gives you a form saying that I rolled it over into this account, right? Okay. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, so you said or transfer it into another investment account. What do you
Yes.
mean by that?
That's why I said a tax deferred investment account. So that can be how do you call it? The how do you call it? It can be the self-employed IRA. It can also be the how do you call it? The traditional.
Right.
Yes. Not no not not not
Roth?
a Roth, but a traditional
IRA.
IRA. Very different ones. All right. Is okay. Next slide. So now here, as you can see, we have both the Roth and the traditional, right? So if you can see, the traditional says it has pre-tax additions, right? So basically, I don't want to pay tax on the money I have, right? Or I want to reduce how much tax I'll be, how do you call it? I will be paying. So we'll put, how do you call it? We'll put money into the traditional, right? So that way the money is tax deferred, right? For the Roth is post, how do you call it? Is post tax additions, right? So how do you call it? You have been, how do you call it? You have received your check, right? And then you go and pay for it, right? And for each of them too, you can contribute a max of 6,500 or 7 each year if you are over 50, right? And that is designed for those people that most people tend to make a lot more money as they get a bit, how do you call it, a bit older. So it's designed to help you, yes. And it's taxed for the traditional is taxed at the distribution. That basically means that it's taxed when you pull it out, right? Not taxed before, right? For the Roth IRA, only your proceeds are taxed. That basically means all the interest that is built up is what's taxed alone, not the actual money that was in the account, right? So again, like I said, it's not a one size fits all, right? Each one is designed to fit what you actually need, right? So what you need is what is designed for you, and as it says, the traditional is tax deductible from your tax returns, right? And then the how do you call it? The Roth is not tax deductible, right? And as I said, for all of these accounts, the only time you can actually pull them out is after 59 and a half years old. How do you call it? If that isn't what happens, then you get the how do you call it? The 10% penalty and the tax as well. That's how do you call it? Does anybody have any questions?
Like monthly or something like that. I just
So it's a max of 6,500 each year, actually. So let's specify that. It's designed in such a way that it's a tax deductible thing, right? So if you don't put a max on it, rich people will just put their money in there, not paying it, exactly. So that's kind of how it's been designed. Anybody else? Okay, all right. Next slide. Mutual funds. Does anybody know what this is? And anybody? Okay, I guess we're really shy tonight, huh? Exactly. It's a group fund, right? So basically, it's
I was just saying like Susu, right?
wifey.
No, I'm good. Thank you. No, I'm good.
Exactly, big susu, exactly, right? So it's actually how do you call it? It's designed because most people don't have access to how do you call it? To stock investors, right? Like it's actually expensive to have your own personal person who buys and sells, your stock for you. So it's designed that you pull your money in, right, and then it's invested as a whole, right? So it's pretty much an easy way to build, to invest in the stock market, almost not so much risk-free, but a lot less risk as per if you bought and sold your own stock. Okay, so again, it's fairly risk-free if you don't, if you do not, how do you call it, if you don't touch it, at all, right? It's fairly risk-free. And the tax is only taken when you sell the stock and you make a profit from it. However, it has a 35% rate. So it's much higher than your regular thing. But it can be accessed at any point in time. What? That is the rate of the tax that is put when you sell and you make money. How do you call it? From it, yeah. So it's a much higher rate because it's deemed as passive income, so it's not actually worked for. So that how do you call it? So it's taxed much higher. The other thing is that almost every mutual fund is the same, right? These how do you call it? Somebody will say, oh, you buy my funds, we will double your, how do you call it? It's not true. It's not possible. There's no fund in the world that will double your money just like that. It's not possible. So all funds are still the same, but make sure that you do your research on the fees that they'll bill you on. That's where they actually get you from, right? So make sure that you find out and you do your research. All right. Yes. No, it. Next again.
So does this have a maximum amount of investment?
It's actually. So however much you have, put into it.
Okay.
Right. But again, what we do is that we don't put all your funds into like one place, right? We spread it out, right? So some how do you call it? Some will be in a mutual fund, right? Inside the mutual fund, there are multiple different kinds of funds, right? There's stocks, there's bonds, there's the ETFs, right? There's many different, even the bonds, even the stocks, each one has a different, So again, it's spread out depending on what your risk is, right? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Oh, perfect. Life insurance. Now, this is one thing that us Africans hate. And I've met a lot of Africans that I'll come and talk to about this, and they'll say, why would I put money aside for someone to spend when I die? And that is selfish thinking, right? Life insurance is why people are rich. And I'll say this for a fact. It's why people have generational wealth. It's designed specifically for that. And us Africans are afraid because it's almost seems as we have to be dead first. But that isn't always the case, right? Okay. And if you're on Zoom and you have anything to ask, please reach out. Please send in your question as well, and then I will get that. So the life insurance, right? It allows for easy estate planning, right? Basically, what that means is that it allows you to properly plan for your family in case you go, right? Right now, I just got married about a year ago, right? We have a house, right? So if I die, I have to make sure that my wife doesn't have to pay for that house by herself. Or if, God forbid, if she goes before me, I wouldn't like to have to pay for the house all by myself, right? If you have kids, for example, right? You want your kid to go back to school, right? On this occasion, you want to ensure that your family has peace of mind, right? This is the best way to actually make that happen. And depending on the policy you have, you can have tax-free cash value as well, right? Which means you can actually enjoy your money before you go, right? Also, the funds dependent on what you have will actually allow you to borrow money from it as well, right? There are people who actually have it who will borrow money tax-free from it and just use that money to buy a house, to start a business, right? Go from there. There are multiple ways about it. And if you take it out, all you have to do is, if you don't pay it back when you pass, the money is taken out from the death benefits, and the balance will be given to your family as well. Now there are two, how do you call it? There are whole life and term. Very different. Each one has its own benefits. Each one has its own disadvantage as well. Does anybody have any questions so far?
My question is, the two type of the insurance, the whole life and the term. Can you explain more about it? Which one is good when you have family? Because I know the whole life you can borrow from it. So can you explain more?
Yes.
That's why a lot of Africans don't understand, like you say, we don't want to buy, because they tell you can get money, but they forget to tell you you will lose. So can you explain it, please?
Okay. So as you can see from here, this will pretty much kind of explain to you. If it doesn't, please let me know. So whole life, right? It's whole life, right? Until you have it, until you die. If it's paid off, you're good, right? And in some actual policies, what happens is, if you pay off to a certain point, it will pay itself off almost, if that makes sense. So let's say you pay for like about 6 years, right? And you lose your job, right? Some whole life policies will actually pay itself so that it's actually maintained. Again, I said some, not all. That's why you have to make sure and do your own research, right? Now, for the term, it's insured until the end of the term, right? So it's not a long-term plan, it's a short-term plan, right? Once I'm done, I will actually properly explain what she asked, okay? Okay, now whole life, it's a lot more expensive, right? So depending on what you have, it might be good for you, or it might not be good for you, right? But it's also expensive because it has a higher risk, as well as it's a higher benefit, right? And the term, not as expensive, right? Whole life will have cash value, and the term, some have it, but not usually. And when it has it, not always the best, right? And whole life can also act as a tax-free investment tool, again, depending on the policy you have. And the term is best for estate, planning. So let's say I have 3 kids, right? I want to ensure that my house is paid off and their school is paid off, right? Until they're old enough. So I'll get we'll get this policy instead, because it's easier to also have more money for a lot less as well, right? That will protect my family in case anything happens, right? Whole life is great if you're really rich, right? It's good to have just in case. Now, I will recommend have some whole life, like have about, let's say, 50 or even 20, or even 20, yes, in whole life, right? Because again, I went to a funeral back home this year, right? My grandmother's funeral, and we know how us Africans love our funerals, right? And it was not cheap. Seeing everything, so now I personally do not want my kids to have to struggle to bury me. So I will make sure that there is something for them that in case anything happens, my health expenses, my medical expenses, any leftover debts I might have, right? That helps for that as well. So, but, and also, as it says, you can also combine, combine both as well. I always recommend that if you have young kids, this, not the whole life, the is usually best because it will offer you a lot more protection. Now, once the term is done, you might not get any money back at all, depending on the policy that you have, right? So again, you have to evaluate, right? Is this the best thing for me? All right. The next slide. And also, there are a few other, other tools as well, right? There is the wills and trust. Hey, baby. My wife, anyways, I'll get to that later. Wills and trust. Again, wills and what a will does, right, is it ensures that the government cannot touch your property once you pass, right? Most people don't have a will, but what will happen is, let's say you and let's say the husband and the wife are both gone, right? And it's just the kids. If there is no one actually on paper that this is the person responsible for the kids, the government comes and takes over. And then they determine who will watch your kids for you, right? So I always emphasize that get a will. If you can do more, have a trust. It will allow you to properly plan for everything. Let's say you have a whole life policy, right? What that does is you can dictate how much and what the money does for each kid at what point in time, at what age. Let's say they turn 25, for example. It can give them money to go and buy a house or start a business. Or let's say you want your child to have a lovely wedding, for example, right? It can also give money for that. You can specify to the detail, the T that you want that to actually happen. The other one is also a 529 savings plan. Now, this is designed for school, right? So if you feel that your kid is not the smartest kid, won't get all the scholarships in the world, or you just want to prepare in advance for your kids, right? Just make sure that if there's anything that you don't need for school, let's say your tax bracket is a bit too high, right? You want to make sure that you know for a fact that your kids won't qualify for FAFSA because you make exactly. So that also helps in. Now this allows the money to grow tax-free. And in the state of Arizona, you get a $2,000 a year tax. Tax credit. So basically, you get it back, right? And also, there's also a health savings account. Now, this you will usually find with companies whose health insurance has a very high deductible, right? Now, what this does is that it allows you to put money away, right, for health expenses, right? And it can be spent on health expenses tax-free, right? But if you don't touch it at all, right, and let's say you turn 60, it acts as actually it acts as a return account, and in some businesses they'll match what you put into it, right? My old job, for example, will for every amount you put up to about $600 a year, it's matched, right? So I put money into it just to actually, match that. Does anybody have anything they would prefer to ask? Yes.
It don't add up fast.
No, it doesn't.
So as a new mothers, it's the best to put money down, and every month you can add it to it. That's what I did when I was in New York. It don't add up. Little bit you add to it. By the time your child reaches college, you know you have something for the child. So
And also, can we go to the next?
I have a
Oh, yeah.
question. So when you were talking about was it the life insurance, can you give an example of what the term would look like?
Okay, so term would look like, so if you've probably seen an ad, right, that says 500 for maybe $15 a month, right? That is always 100% a, how do you call it, policy, right? What it's designed for is that it's a much lesser risk, right? And it's not how to put it. It has a lot more money that that can have, but once it's fully paid for, it's done, right? It's like how you have it's like health insurance, right? Or your vehicle insurance, right? Whether you have an accident or you don't, it's still paid for, and whether you have one or not, you still won't get that money back. But it's there just in case, right? We don't want that to happen, but again, it's not wise, it's not advisable if we don't plan for the just in case. Because when the just in case happens and you're stuck, right? And even still, again, it's a good way to leave a legacy for a good way to leave a legacy for your your family as well. All right.
Question.
Yes.
So how would you structure a term life for, like, I don't know, say you're
Us?
married and 3 kids or something? I know
Okay.
you were talking about earlier, put it on, like say your kids until they're 18. What happens after that? Or how do you structure it, and then what happens after that? Do you get another term life insurance like from 19 to whatever? Or how does that work?
Okay, so I'll speak for how I would do, right, for myself. So I got married about a year ago, right? We don't have any kids right now, right? So I will probably insure myself with maybe about, if I can afford it, about 100,000 in whole life, right? Reason being is that, again, I can grow the cash value, right? That's the first part. If I can afford it. Then once I have that, because I'm young, it's much less expensive, right? I pay a lot less. I have a much higher death benefit, right? But whatever cash is being put inside it, also is for you in long run. And then let's say I have a house. Let's say my yes, exactly, is about, let's say, 450, right? I have 100. I already have 100 in whole life, right? So I'll do about, let's say, let's say 400, right? In the how do you call it? Yes, right? Again, that is so that in case something happens, the house can be paid for, as well as any debts I might have. Let's say I have a car, you know, stuff, you know, I have student loans, right? Again, that helps. Now, let's say we have a kid, right? So now I want to ensure that my wife can pay for the house and the kids and leave something in case my income, since my income is not there anymore, I have to ensure that my wife can actually support the family independently, right? So now let's say I might get another, let's say 300,000 extra, right? Now again, that's being me because I'm young, right? So I'll get an extra 300,000 of the Bianca, can you go back? No, go back. Yeah, yes, we're right there. So I will get about 300. How do you call it? 300. Yes, extra on not the whole life, but on the term, right? Because again, I want to ensure that our kids are okay, right? It sounds like it's a lot, but if it's properly structured, it doesn't cost as much. What I will advise is that always make sure that you read the instructions, you read the fine print. Find someone, ask them, do your research, right? So that way, and then once that's all done, right? So now I have about 700 in the term. How do you call it? I have about 700 in the term and about 100 in whole life, right? So now I will. Can you go back to the next slide? So now I'll have a will and a trust, right? The will will say that, okay, everything I have in my insurance is to my wife, right? But the trust will specifically pay off the house, because in the trust I can state this money is for the house. Once the house is paid for, put this money into a brokerage account, right? And then what that will do is that will actually give her some, how do you call it? Give her some money each month, right? To actually help her pay, hopefully house is done, right? So now it's just, the monthly, bills and such, right? And also can actually put inside of the trust as well that this much money is for school, right? So don't, if let's say she wants to buy a Range Rover, no, it's for school. That's it, right? So again, does that make sense though? Okay. No, you had a question. Yeah.
What you were saying, perfect, spot on. And what I was also to say, it's like renting a house. A term is like renting a house. It's like renting an apartment actually. So in an apartment, you are paying for how much you're gonna be staying at there. So and then it comes with whatever is there. At the end of your term, you can leave or you can renew it. Now, you cannot ask the apartment, hey, can I get my money back? No, of course not, you cannot do that. But what you can do that, you can renew it and keep renewing it over and over and over and until eventually you kick off or you go to your move or whatever it is. So that's the simplest way I can put about what the term is. And then the whole life or the permanent life insurance will be like buying a house, where in a sense is from the beginning you got an upfront cost like closing costs, insurance, all that stuff. But at the end of the term, you now only have because it is invested and you have something called a like what's that word? You have like equity.
Yes.
Perfect. And you have equity in that. Now you can use it for whatever you want.
Right. So that is Mr. Samuel Cooper. He will be here in a few minutes to actually speak on what he does for us. Now let's. So this is a simple breakdown of like how we would help you invest, right? So there is risk averse and also risk tolerant. So basically, how well can you handle it, right? Someone who's 50 can't really take a lot of risk because you're probably going to start working in about 15 years, right? Someone who's like 15, 25, 18, you can handle a lot more risk, right? So again, we design what works for you based on where exactly you stand. Now, you can be 60 and still risk tolerant, and you can be 15 and risk averse. Again, it depends on what your needs are, right? Next slide. Things to avoid: listening to friends for financial advice. Major no-no. Major no-no. Have friends, what? But I'm a professional. Difference. Now, I do not advise just listening. Now, if you listen and then you back it up with research, great. And if I say research, I don't mean go on YouTube and just watch a video, or on Instagram and you see a video of do this, do that, do that. That might have worked for that person, it might not work for you. All right, so always assess that stuff as well. Not shopping around for advice. You will lose a lot of money if you don't look around, right? Especially with not even the whole life, but the term. All term is about the same, right? It's all about how much you're paying for it. So always shop around. Get rich quick schemes. If it sounds way too good to be true, it is. Don't trust it. If someone comes and tells you, here, bring me 50 in a month, I'll double it up, it's a lie. If someone says, come to me, you pay no tax, you get a tax refund every time, it's a lie. Right? I'm a tax accountant, I know. It's a lie. Not always that'll happen. Sometimes it can happen based on what you have, not just because he said so, right? Now, cost versus affordability, right? Let's say we're going to buy a house and they say we qualify for 500K. That doesn't mean I can actually afford 500K, right? I might be able to afford like 250, but I can buy 500,000. So now I have to know better and let's say, spend what I can afford, right? And how much it is versus how much you pay, right? Very important. And also something to bear in my mind as well is the peace of mind of paying things off versus the benefits down the line of paying over and over again, right? You always have to assess it. Maybe you want to go and buy a Range Rover, right? My wife wants a Range Rover, right? Maybe I have 70K to go buy a Range Rover, right? But I might be able to invest that 70K into a business and have a loan and pay it off slowly while my 70K that I invest in the business is building up, right? Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. It's dependent on what works best for you. So I'll break for a little bit. I'll let Brother Samuel talk, and then once he's done, we will talk about business business structures. So Brother Sam is a
Question.
yes. Oh yes.
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to bother you. But
Oh, no, no, no. it's
so
all
I
good.
hear people talk about how, like, if you make a certain X amount of money, then you should know how much to spend. You know, maybe you shouldn't spend, what does it say? You shouldn't spend above what you make, or is it below what you make? But I felt like what you talked about, cost versus affordability. Can you explain that more in details?
So,
Like if you want to buy a house, for instance.
yeah. So, example, I know that when my wife and I were about to have a house, I knew that this is how much I can afford to pay each month, right? So, if they told me I can afford a million dollar home, I don't have that kind of money, right? So, if I go and buy $1 million home, guess what? In 6 months, I'm back on the streets, or worse, my mom's house with my wife. Bad idea, right? No one wants that, right? So I know that I cannot do that, right? So instead, I go for what I can afford, right? So I buy again. If it's $250, I know that $250 is what I have. What is the amount I can pay for each month, right? And so I stay in that range, right? So again, it's not. I have learned this lesson big time, right? I used to think I was a big shot. I was spending, balling, and guess what? I messed up my credit. I was broke. I had no car for like a minute there, right? But eventually, I learned my lesson, right? And now I'm plenty cool, right? So again, like, don't do things to listen. Your friends, I have friends in Range Rovers right now, in Ghana, by the way, right? But I cannot try and match them because guess what? That's not where I am right now, right? So let's also remember that. Does that help? Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to introduce Brother Samuel. Is anybody else? Yes.
I think they also say not to go over 40% of your total income. Yeah.
Yes.
For housing.
Yeah. So that's actually pretty good advice. So Brother Sam is a financial advisor with Sky Vision Holding. He is going to come and talk briefly about what he does. And so please don't leave. We are going to talk about business as well. No, probably a good 70% of you here have a business, so please wait and then we'll talk about that. Brother Sam?
Thank you so much, Eric, for that. That was terrific. What a great information. Very good. Yeah, please give me another hand again. And I'm so grateful to be here. And thank you so much for everybody for the opportunity to really share with you some financial concepts and principles. So we're gonna, just go to slideshow. Here we go. And then we're gonna start on the fourth slide. Just gonna go quick. Keep going. Right there. So I'm gonna go very quickly. But before we go, I just want to set the stage. Okay. Who here plays soccer? Yeah? Perfect. Awesome. Now, if you don't know how to play soccer at all, the rules, the regulations, nothing, can you win? No. You just cannot win. It's almost inevitable that you're going to win the game if you don't know the rules of the game. Correct? The same thing when it comes to finance. I'm a financial professional, just a little background. I've been doing it for many years. I love it. What I like to do is teach people understand that there is principle, there's concept, and there's application behind it. If I ask any of you, everybody want to say what? You want to retire rich. You want to retire with money in your bank account, with stocks, with all kinds of stuff. You want to retire, but the main thing is you want to retire with a peace of mind. And what does that mean? What the peace of mind means? It literally just means is this. You want to wake up whenever you want to wake up. You want to go to the vacation spot whenever you want to go and you want to have the funds whenever you need it. You don't need to be nagging to go to work. You don't have to worry about that. So what are some few concepts? Let me just go ahead and just show you some few concepts right now. So you see like the state of the financial industry, this is how it goes. The business model for many financial companies are geared most towards the affluent. That means the rich people. Nothing bad with that. I want to be rich, we all want to be rich. But there is a caveat with that. The big thing is like number one, 99% of Americans are underserved. And why they are underserved? Because there is an increasing need for financial education and help. But the thing is, not a lot of people know where to get it. And I'm so grateful and glad that Eric went ahead and taught us how that looks like. So at least, part of the whole church is being educated when it comes to financial knowledge, which is amazing. So the main thing is, that's why we're here to help. On the next slide, the good thing is this, and Eric mentioned this, is there is no one-size-fits-all, which is a good thing. Because what that does, when it comes to it, I partner with over many different companies, about 150 of them. And these are just a few of them, like Transamerica, Nationwide, Prudential, and Global Atlantic, and the list goes on. Eric mentioned some few of these things on here as well. That you can see, you have something called a power of choice. So you can choose anything. For me, like, because it's very important, for me, when you sit down with me, we're going to go over a few things. What are you trying to achieve? Where you will need to go? It's like putting in your GPS where you want to go. Like, okay, I want to come to the church. We live about like 25 minutes away. If I don't know the address of the church, I'm going to be driving in circles. The same thing comes with finance. You must put in your financial GPS where you want to go, how you want to get there, and then what is the route to get there. And that's what I usually talk about. What is that route? So when we sit down with me, then we will plan all that out. So the first thing is, Eric mentioned it perfectly well, life insurance, amazing thing, jump on it. Long-term care. Many of us are getting very older, right? Long-term care. Many of us we take care of older people. What if you can put that in place now for your future? Then you take that stress off the kids or anybody else. College planning and so forth. On the next slide, this is right here what I talk about. I like to talk about the concept first. So this is where I talk about. The first thing is a financial needs analysis. It's your financial GPS. So when you sit down with me, we're going to talk about 6 areas. Perhaps you may not know which one it is. So the first one is increasing cash flow. Maybe that's what we need to do. What does that look like? Maybe I need to manage my expenses. I'm spending too much. Or emergency funds. We just have a pandemic that wiped out so many people's credits. Loans were skyrocketing. So what if you have an emergency fund that you can have saved for 3 to 6 months? Prepare for that unexpected expenses. That's the one. And then college planning. Eric mentioned that in the 529 plan. That's a great product for that. And then also too, you got the proper protection. I cannot stress how important this is. This is a fancy word just saying life insurance, mainly. That's a fancy word just saying life insurance. And what it does, it protects against the loss of income and protect your family assets. And we have more time, we can go into that in more detail. And then the fifth one, building wealth. We strive to outpace inflation because now inflation is about like 7% or more. So when you have inflation on you, and then you want to make sure we reduce your taxes, and then have a professional money management while you are growing your funds. And then after that, then you want to preserve that wealth. right? And that I have so many other options that we can go into. But right now, I'm just gonna give you like a bird's eye view of what it really is. So on the next slide, this is where it gets really interesting. Any questions so far? No? All right. If I'm going too fast, please let me know. Please slow me down, okay? All right. So I want to ask this question. How will you like, if someone come to you, you just got paid, and then they come to you and say, how will you like your money to grow? Anybody? How will you like your money to grow? Yes, are coming down, yeah. You want it to grow without coming down. Well, how about this? The good thing is there are 3 ways you can let your money grow. A, B, or C. The first way is a fixed account. Just like you see the line right there, it is fixed. That's like your savings account, your checking account. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down, it just stays as fixed as it can be. It is safe, it is good, but it never grows, it never dies, it's just there. Now, the second way you can grow your money is in the variable account. It's like it's like a roller coaster. What goes up must come down. Is you can put it in the stock market. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to put it in the stock market. I'm not saying that. But what Eric mentioned earlier is your risk tolerance to that. And there are other products in there as well that can really help. So that's another way that can be your 401k, stocks, bonds, and so forth. The next, the C is index. Anyone you heard about index before? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Index. Anybody familiar with index at all? Yeah? Perfect. Now, the way I can explain index is if you take, let's just say it's A, fixed account, or B, variable account, they get together and they have a baby, the baby we call index. Okay? Now, what I mean by that is you're going to have the protection of the fixed account for the growth of the variable account, but locks in the index way. So what I mean is that you can see the little locks there, that when the market, so this is how it does. When the market goes up, you can participate up to the market. You can participate. Now, when the market goes down, it locks in your gain that it does not, you do not lose any. And then when it goes back up, and keep forward, so it's like a staircase. Any questions on that? Yeah. So let me ask you a question. How would you like to grow your money? Would you like to fix, variable, or index? Index, or whatever works, right? Okay, next one is this. Now you want to have it, just keep it on the slide for me, please. Sorry. So the next one now, once you understand you want to grow in the index way, now let's just see, how would you like to be taxed on the growth of that money that you just have? How would you like to be taxed on the growth of that money? Well, you can get taxed now, taxed later, or tax advantage. And the main thing about it, the tax now, it will be a savings account, mutual funds, and stocks and bonds. Or the next one can tax me later will be a 401k, 403b, and so forth. And then the next one, the 3, will be your Roth IRAs, which Eric talked about beautifully, your 529 plans, your municipal bond, and your investment in the life insurance policy. That means it's this. Let me just ask a quick question. Let's just say I'm the IRS, I'm Uncle Sam, right? I come to you, you just make your beautiful money. And just for simplicity, you make $10. And then I come to you and I say, hey, you know what, William? Congratulations, you just make your $10. Good job. Now, the question is, do you want to pay taxes now on that $10? Or do you want me to wait till that $10 turn into $20,000, then you pay taxes on the $20,000. Which one you choose? $10. Now, it is as easy and simple as this, but it's very hard for most people to get that. Most people want to defer that. But the good thing is when you meet with a financial professional, advisor, Eric and I, we then show you how it works. What is your situation, how we move forward from there. Okay. On the next slide, then I'll be wrapping things up here. I just want to show you just a quick synapse on the market for the last 20 years. Okay. So you can see here the reds are when the market went down. This is the index rate. If you were investing your money in the index rate, this is how it looks like. Let's just say in 2001, either you're investing in the stock market or in the index. In 2001, so the graph on this side, you can see in 2001, 2002, let's just say you invest 100,000 in the stock market. You can see in 2001, 2002, the market went down, right? Now, but in 2002, you can see your 100,000 now becomes 68,000. But you say, oh, you know what? The market gonna go up. It's okay. So it did went up, but in 2008, I don't know, many people remember 2008. It was bad. The market went down 38%. But then it go back up. So over the whole entire period for 20 years, you were just riding the market. We're just riding the market. Now you are able to save $292,000, but you haven't paid taxes on it at all. No taxes ever. So now you are at 69 and a half, now you want to pull your money out, you got to pay, right now, let's say you're in a tax bracket of 30%. You had to pay $87,000 and you're only able to take on 204. Not bad. But let's just say it was in the index account. In the index account, it's called the tax-free family bank. It's been around for many, many years, actually. You look at that. In 2001 and 2002, while the market was down, your account was 0.75%. This is what I'm saying, that when the market goes down, it locks in your gain. So you can even see that, but it's go up to 15%. It does cap at 15%. Most of them are capped at a certain level, but you are guaranteed by contract not to lose your money at all. So you can see all the way down in 20 years, you are able to get $498,000, and look how many taxes you pay. 0 taxes. So I will end here for more questions, but the main thing I'll just say is like information share is good, but the best thing about taking the action to actually put those information into place is most important. And this is amazing knowledge, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of financial knowledge. Any questions so far?
Okay, everybody, let's give a round of applause to. So this is my favorite part, avoiding taxes. Okay, so again, like I said, I am a tax accountant. Slide, please. We have a technical problem. Give me a second. Hold on. Guys, it's been handled. Okay, next slide. Perfect. Business accountant. This is my favorite topic because this is what I do for a living. This is like low-key my passion. You can see the excitement on my face, right? Great. So, businesses, right? The tax code in this country is designed to benefit businesses. If you have a W-2 wage, I'm sorry, you'll be paying tax for the rest of your life. I'm sorry in advance. It's designed for businesses. It's literally designed to encourage people to start businesses. So there are multiple ways, different kinds of, and how do you call it? Types of, the entities means types of different ways of structuring your business, right? So there's a sole proprietorship or a Schedule C. There's a limited liability service corporation. As my wife told me last time, it's a company, a sub-charter corporation, or how do you call it, the S corp, a regular corporation, a C corp, or a non-profit. The next slide, please. So the sole proprietor or Schedule C is what a lot of people probably have but don't know, right? So this is basically it usually has a single owner. It can be two, it can be more, but it's usually just one. It has no form of legal protection, right? So basically, if let's say you sell, I can't even say a national oil. Let's say you sell cell phones, right? And someone will use your phone, and it's explicit here, right? They can sue you for everything you have, your car, your house, your bank account, all that stuff, right? So so you have almost no protection as well. And the money and the tax return is directly on your personal tax return, right? So that means it's pretty much you. Does that make any sense? Next slide. A limited liability company. Now, a lot of people know about this, but not entirely, right? So it separates you from your business, right? So it makes your business a separate individual from you, right? So that allows it to, let's say again, back to the phone will explodes in your ear. They attack just the company that made the phone, and that's it. It ends there, right? It provides a layer of protection. Depending on how it's set up, it might go on your personal tax return. Now, if you have just the simple LLC, and you're the only member on the LLC, it goes on your personal tax return, which in a way minimizes the amount of protection that you have. So always bear in mind. It can also be easily converted into a different entity. The S corp, the C corp, or the partnership, and it acts as a pass through, right? So basically, what that means is that the business is not taxed, right? The profits from the business is brought into your personal tax return with what we call and then that is where you pay, you pay the tax. Next slide. Partnerships, actually, now scrap that. Next slide. Okay, this is probably my favorite type because it allows for a lot more. It allows for all the benefits of a C Corp and also at the same time the benefits of just a simple limited liability, right? It allows the money to pass through back into you, but it also allows you to pay yourself an actual, an actual wage. What that means is that the owners can pay themselves a wage to avoid self-employment, taxes. Now, that costs a bit higher when you have your own business because it's taxed at the maximum amount of what you have if you are not paying it out already. But what the S Corp does is it allows you to pay yourself a reasonable wage so that when the time comes to file your taxes, you don't have to pay as much self-employment tax because you already paid for it. And once that's done, you can also pay yourself in distributions. And the tax form is filed on the 1120S. Next slide. And C Corp. Now, this is becoming a bit more popular right now, mainly because right now it has a fixed tax rate of 21%. So some people tend to prefer this. The only issue with this that most people don't realize is that you cannot pull your money out of it without having to pay tax on it, right? Unlike the S corp and the LLC, this one, when you pull your money out, is taken out as a dividend, right? And that is taxed, right? Depending on the nature of it, it can be taxed much higher. So always bear in mind, and all the owners will have a share in the business, and it's filed on the form 1120. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about tax deductions and how having a business actually helps you, right? So, does anybody remember when the word was out that Donald Trump paid $700 in his returns? Right? It hurt, right? Because you were like, I paid more taxes than him, right? But guess what? I would love to meet his accountant because all he did was very legal, right? And that's the way it's designed in America, right? Donald Trump, his shirts are made by him. His company's Trump Industries, right? He has a Trump towers, Trump stick line, food, right? Again, apartments. So now it's a C corp, right? So he can almost live in a way for free because his business, he himself is promoting his business. So if he goes shopping in his own line and he wears his own shirts and his own jacket, he is promoting his stuff, right? So it's tax deductible. He stays in his house and he says, look at Trump, for example, right? He's promoting his business. It's tax deductible, right? Now, the beauty about taxes is, can you show that it makes sense, right? Example, let's say you have a business where take me for example, right? I work as an accountant, right? If I buy a laptop, it makes sense, right? So I can buy a laptop and bill it to my business, right? Now, if I buy a semi truck, it doesn't make sense, right? So now they're like, okay, why are you buying a truck? It's not tax deductible for your business because you cannot prove that it serves a business purpose to your business. Does that make any sense to anybody? Right. Now, you can buy a car and put on your business, right? Depending on the nature of your business, you can write the whole value of the car off in the same year, right? That is what we call a bonus depreciation. Does anybody know what it is? Yes, or not even bonus, not even that, but just the idea of depreciation in general. Anybody? Exactly. So you buy a car, it will lose value, right? If you buy a machine, it will lose value over time, right? Now, that is, in my opinion, the best thing that happened to any business whatsoever because it allows you to almost expense in a year, all the money you made, right? So say I had a person who made about 160 last year, right? And he didn't want to pay all of in taxes. So he went and bought a car. Now he put a car in the business name, right? Because it makes sense to do that. And he wrote the whole car off in the first year. So now he's dropped his tax by almost $60K, right? Just by buying a car for the business, right? Again, it doesn't always apply, right? Does it make sense to buy that for the business? Yes, buy it, right? Or let's say someone wants to, someone wants to expand his business, right? But he isn't sure when to actually expand the business. So he will wait till he's made a So, thank you. That's nice, Mike. So I guess that's how, I know, right? So again, there are multiple ways to deduct on your business, right? So I always advise that if you have a hobby, start a business. You never know where that will go, right? And can we have next slide, please? Business rules, and I cannot stress this enough. I know this is what I do. I know that's what my lovely wife does. But I can't stress it enough. See an accountant, see an attorney. I can't tell you how many mistakes people make in business, how much they risk an audit, how much they risk lawsuits, how much they risk all these things. There are multiple mistakes that people can make if they don't have an accountant and an attorney. Again, I'm not saying that because that's what we do, but it's because I know that's what actually happens, right? So please, don't find me. It's okay. I have my own business. Find somebody else. Get the help you need. It's very important. There are multiple tax incentives giving the right advice, right? So every business has ways of maximizing tax incentives, right? In Phoenix here, right? There are parts of the city that you can buy a land and start a business in and not pay tax for 10 years, right? But you will never know that, right? Because again, you don't want to call it, right? Exactly. Always check with a tax professional before you make a major investment, because you don't know how that will affect you. I can't stress it enough. You don't know how that will affect you. If you want to buy a car for the business, talk to them. If you want to buy, and not even because it's not tax deductible, but it's how to go about buying it, right? Even how to set up the buy is very different. Make sure to separate personal expenses and business expenses from your, make sure to separate personal expenses and revenue from the business. Let me explain. I think it was in 2018, I had a client, right? And we did his business expenses, business taxes, and the government sent us a bill for almost about $650, right? It made no sense to us. Like, we were like, we've done your taxes. It makes sense. Like, why do you owe $650? You know what he did? The money he paid himself from his business, right? He put back into his business because he liked the idea of having a corporate account and spending out a corporate account, right? Guess what happened? The Irish thought that all that money was from the business and that he wasn't paying tax on it, even though he's already paid tax on the money already. Does that make sense? Right? So I always stress that separate those two. As separate as they are, it's beautiful. Have bank accounts. If you spend on your business or your personal, make a record of it. Bill it to your business. Have your business pay you back. Have that written down. Piece of paper, notepad, have something showing that you've done that, right? And pay your taxes if you owe taxes. They don't play with you. They will seize your bank account. They will seize your house. They'll sell your house. Trust me, I've seen it happen. It's not pretty. All right? Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Yes, non-profit. So the church is a non-profit, right? Funny thing, right now that I'm here, right, I'm doing this for you guys, right? I bill per hour, right? So I'm billing right now, right, non-profit work. Does that make sense to anybody? So non-profits are designed to give money out because non-profits don't make money, right? Again, if you see, how many people will go to, let's say, Panda Express or CVS, and they'll say, give this much money to Phoenix students, right? Right? They are doing that because, again, that is to help them give money out and also minimize how much profits that they actually make, right? So it's a donation, yes. So non-profits don't actually pay tax, but they are designed not to make how do you call it? A profit as well. Example, the church, for example, right? It's a non-profit because the building is for everybody, right? We give money to people. We have events, right? It's a good way to almost do good for people while paying less in tax as well, right? So if let's say you are rich and you want to be, help, you have to just file the form 501c. If you have any quick questions about that, please see me. We can talk about that, and then you can start one. It's very easy to start with, and it doesn't take a lot of work. When the year is done, you file a non-profit tax return. You just showing that you made no profit from that, or even if you have money left over, you're showing that it's all going back to the non-profits. Also, with non-profits, you can actually also pay yourself through a non-profit because you're actually working for a non-profit, right? So, yeah. Anybody else? But yes, back to what I'm saying right now, my business is the one doing this right now, right? So my business is billing this time to non-profit work. So again, that has a 50% tax deductible rate, right? So if my bill rate is, let's say, $60 an hour, I'm billing at least $30 right now, tax-free. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody else? I know someone here has something to ask. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first, I'll start with I avoid cash payments as much as possible. The reason being is that I can't almost always trace a cash payment, right? So if you pay with cash and you give a receipt, you have to have that receipt, right? Now, every business has like a miscellaneous expense, right? That means a portion of your expenses that don't really make sense. You bought a pencil for a buck. You had to buy food real quick, for a client, right? All those things add up, right? So there's some wiggle room to like minor expenses that you don't have, right? But I always advise that you keep record of everything that you have. Whatever you spend, it doesn't, especially if it's over like $500, I recommend that you note why you spend that amount, right? Because that's where it's more so like, that's a lot more than people normally spend. Why? Right? The main thing with them is the why. Can you prove the why? Right? If I'm buying, and if I bought this right now, just today, for this event, I can prove why I needed this for right now because I've actually used this right now, right? You can see it, right? If I'm billing my phone bill for the business, I can prove why. I have phone calls, I have texts showing that this is for business. I have my business work email here, right? Now, if I bought these sandals under my business, why am I buying sandals that I'm going to wear already for a business, right? Sorry, that's kind of gross. But does that make sense, right? So again, it's mostly the why. But again, back to what Pastor asked. Yes, I, as an accountant, I keep a record of whatever you send me, right? So if you say I spent $600 on something, I'll ask you, okay, is this on your business account? Great, perfect. I can find it easily. If it's not on your business account, do you have a receipt, right? If you don't have a receipt, I cannot prove that you spend that money. So now I have a duty to myself and my hard-earned, that I can't almost take your word for it. Now, if I took your word for it now, I will ensure that you write and sign a contract saying that I said this is done, right? Does that make sense? So I have a duty to ensure that I can prove what you told me. And then but then if you can't prove it to me, then I will put it back on you saying, can you prove to them that this is what happened? Now, if I see anything that I know is obviously not true, then I cannot back that up. Then I'll say, hey, listen, either I don't work with you, or you don't do this. Just to ensure that there isn't there isn't, how do you call it, the audit. Now, you hate to have an audit. Audit is not pretty. And it's much worse because the government people don't actually know the tax law that well. So anything that looks like a red flag, they'll pin that. Now, it's up to you to prove that it's for what it's for what you said it is, right? Okay. Does anybody else want to? Yes. Fresh hand was up first.
If I wanted to open a new business, I've never opened a business before. Do I need to use my personal money to open a business, or how do I go about it?
Very good question. So almost every business is most are open with your own personal money and maybe a bank loan, right? Now, if you have a personal money, I recommend you have a business bank account, right? Again, that's why I say you need an accountant, right? Have a business bank account, write how much you put into it, right? Depending on how you want to handle it, it can either be a loan from you into the business, or it can be equity, right? So there are, how do you call it? If you put it, the way, if you have it as a loan from you, then you can pay yourself back without paying tax on that money. Now, if it's the equity, then obviously that can be also pulled from the business, right? But then that isn't exactly tax deductible as an expense. It's seen as a startup, how do you call it? It's seen as a startup. It's seen as a startup bill on the business, so that's not tax deductible. But if it's a loan, what you spend is an expense. So that's how it happens. But yes, you can use your own personal funds to how do you call it? Have a business.
Can you take a loan?
Yes, you can. Again, that's why how you structure the business is how that's possible. If you have a Schedule C, you are the business. So you cannot loan yourself the money. But if you have the LLC, ideally a C Corp or an S Corp, it's easier to pull it out of your business as a loan tax-free. Now, however you decide to pay it back, that's between you and the business, right? So I have someone who wanted to buy a house, right? So he wasn't sure. He had a C Corp, right? So then with him, I said, okay, how about you loan the money to your wife, since the wife does not own the business, right? And then your wife can buy the house. Or you and your wife can buy the house together, right? Because to him, if he pulls out the money from the business just like that, he'll be taxed, on it. Because he has a C Corp, right? So again, he takes out the loan. Him and his wife goes to buy the house. He writes some note saying, I borrowed this much money out, pay it back. He probably won't pay it back, right? But again, on paper, it's a loan, right? And that's up to him and the business. Yes.
All you need is writing.
Again, a promissory note. Again, it depends on your business structure. The answer for almost every tax question is it depends. If you say, Eric, can I deduct this? I don't know. It depends, right? I need the facts to actually know that this is deductible. If someone comes to you and says, "Oh, don't worry, I got you. You pay no tax," he's lying. He's not doing his job right at all. If you're filing taxes and someone says, "Oh, go and bring your friend's kid and put him in your taxes," don't do it. Don't do it. If they catch you, that's tax evasion, and that's worse than not paying taxes. So, is it, how do you call it? Any, yes, fresh? Just a second, hold on. I want you to get the mic.
What is the difference between member LLC and then management LLC?
So you're either a member or you are a member and a manager, depending on the structure of the LLC, right? So I don't have an LLC. I have an LLC, but I converted it into the S corp. So before I did, it was a member managed LLC, right? So I managed it, right? Or you can have an externally managed LLC, which is managed by somebody else completely, or you can simply be a member on it. Do you have anything to add, Vicky?
Yeah, I just want to say if you do have whichever one, a manager or a member LLC, please make sure to file operating agreement with the Secretary of State. Because if you don't, and in the event that there's some type of issue like a dissolution or you're trying to wind down the business, and if you don't have that operating agreement, then it's going to revert back to the state's or Arizona's statute, and that might not be what you want to do for the business. So just always file the operating agreement so you know whatever it is that you and your, your investment partner or your other manager want to do, you're able to, or else Arizona is going to decide.
Okay, so.
And that's the same for like corporations as well. They have their own operating agreement that they.
Everybody, that is my wife. Okay, so yes, as per what sorry, I was distracted by her for a second. So yes, so having the opportunity agreement is like having a will, right? Remember how I said if you don't have a will, the government can step in and determine what happens to your business. That's what the operating agreement is for. Now, I can't stress enough. I had someone come to me and say, "Eric, let's go buy a house and let's rent it out." I said, "Do you have an accountant? Do you have an accountant? Have an accountant and a lawyer, right?" He said, "No, he doesn't want to spend that money." I said, "I can't work with you then, because what happens if we have a fight, right? What happens if your spouse doesn't like Vicky? I can't do business with you, right? So then it's like, why would I do that? Now, when that happens, now I have to break up the business with you. If there's no operating agreement now, we are about to spend months in court, years in court over a house, So again, I always stress, it doesn't matter if he's your best friend. Have an operating agreement. It does not matter. Vicky. Does someone have a question here?
With the accountant and the lawyer, I'm thinking probably you also have to add a doctor to it, your doctor. Because in business, you need a doctor too. Your health is very important. When it comes, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, Vicky, your question.
My question is about let's just say how would the tax structure work for those that are financial agents?
Okay,
What do you
so
think?
I actually used to do what you do, right? Now, my first recommendation is that you set up what you do as a business, right? Vicky, can I use your sister as an example? Okay, so Vicky's sister is now about to become a model, right? So I have her set up her modeling as a business, right? So we are going to set her up as either a C corp or an S corp, probably not an S corp, but most probably a C corp, right? what that will do is that will, her makeup, her outfits, if she's going for an interview, her outfit that she wear, right? So now she can go shopping on her business because, again, it makes sense with her business, right? So you are a financial advisor, right? You might have to buy a suit to go for an event, right? So I'll say first, have a business, right? Open a business as you. Let's say you are Samuel Cooper, financial advisor, right? That's your business, right? You know, you have the LLC, right? Now, you track all your expenses, right? You track all your expenses, the fuel you're doing. Again, you were here now, you spoke, right? Let's say you had to go, let's say you had to go and buy a new suit for this because you know these are Africans you got to impress, right? So you buy the suit under the business, right? Let's say you have to put fuel in your car, right? Your phone bill, right? Let's say you have a meeting with someone and you eat, right? Your food is an expense, right? Let's say you have to fly somewhere, right? It's an expense. Let's say you have to do extra training. It's an expense, right? But make sure that when you get the 1099 from whoever is given out, is given to your business. It's not in your name, it's in your business name, right? Or if it's not in your business name, make sure that it goes directly into your business bank account, not into your personal bank account, if it makes sense. And if anybody has any questions, please text me, find me. I will always be willing to talk about it. I love this stuff, so yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else? So yeah, so I hope that you have something from here. I'm sorry this went a lot over time. Again, that's what I do. I love what I can't stress this. I love this stuff. I love seeing how to avoid paying taxes. Now, if you have to pay it, please pay it, okay? Don't try and cut around it, you know? But if you'd like to find ways to pay as little as possible or none, please see me, okay? All right. So thank you, everyone. Okay. Yeah. Talk to me after this, because so I have a standard rate for a business, and I have just as talking friends, church people. I'm cool. I won't bill you for that. It's advice. It's different. But if you keep coming to me every time for advice, I'm like, hey, listen, hey, bruh, you know. But I don't actually bill for advice because, again, like I said, I love this stuff. I enjoy talking about it, right? If you guys don't shut me up, I'll be here till 10 o'clock, right? But again, how much I bill per business, I bill per what you need, right? So let's say your business requires about 5 to 6 hours a month from me, I bill that at a certain rate. If you need about 10 hours from me, I bill a certain rate. If you need about 15 hours a month from me, because I bill per the hour, right? So I might run it off, so like every other month but it's still the amount. Have someone who said he wants me to bill them each hour. I did. He didn't really like the invoice, you know? So again, it depends. I work with what your needs are. So I always advise that even if it's not me, find someone who knows. Get the advice. Trust me, it will pay off. One way or the other, it will pay off. If you don't, I've seen this happen. You call me back in like 2 years, Eric, I'm screwed. I can't help you then. All right? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We all done, Pastor? Okay, so I'll say thank you everyone who was here today. If you're on Zoom, you can definitely reach me. I will send my info out soon. Yeah, so that's what I do. If you have any questions, please see me. I'll also post Brother Sam's information on the church WhatsApp, how I call it, in case you want to also, speak to him. So, and he got some flyers here too. So, yeah, we passed them out. Anything else before we wind down? So, yes, we'll get that. So, this is our CA week. I'm the CA president, right? I'm Eric Adisai. If you guys don't know who I am, this is our week, right? So, it's going to be a great week. On Friday, we have a marriage seminar. Now, this will be very different from every other seminar you've been to, because this time we're actually asking real life people how they've handled issues, right? So at least you get to hear different perspectives of everything that they've been through, from a very older married couple of 20, 30 years to one about 5 years to one maybe a year, right? Just to see how they've gone through certain things and they've kind of worked through it. So have your information ready. How do you call it? That will also be here. Now on Saturday we have a volleyball meeting and a barbecue. It begins at 11 o'clock. I will also post that on the church WhatsApp page as well as the church Facebook page as well. And then on Sunday, our brother Prempe will be preaching. We always hear him sing, but on Sunday, yo Prempe, he'll be preaching, so you will not want to miss this. He has taught me a lot about love and relationships that I've used with my wife as well. Hey, baby. So, please be here on time. I'm the head of media. You know I love time. So, we'll start on time, we end on time, okay? So, please be a part of us. Come here on Friday. If you can come on Saturday at 11 o'clock, please be with us. It will be fun. There'll be some food, some games, all that stuff. And on Sunday, we'll all be here and we will worship. And then after that, love feast. A lot of food, okay? So please don't rush home. There'll be food after church. Okay, is it an announcement? Great. Okay, I'll say a quick. Yes, love feast. Yes, Uncle Max. Yes. Okay, I'll wrap it up and say a quick prayer, and then we'll wind down. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for helping us get through this. Thank you for helping with my speech. In Jesus' name, thank you. Please get us home safely, and we'll thank you and worship you and get here on Friday. Thank you in Jesus' name, amen. Let's share the grace. Love of God, and the sweet fellowship of the Holy Spirit. Be with us now and forevermore. Amen. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives, and we shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen. All right, guys, thank you so much. Let there be love.